Let's take a look at some charts on EOS from this week's article in Brave New Coin. So EOS was one of the biggest ICOs ever, or the biggest ICO ever, raising $4 billion, if memory serves correctly. One of the key players behind Block 1 and EOS, Dan Larimer, announced his resignation a few days ago. This is the third project that he will be stepping away from in his storied blockchain career, undoubtedly enriching himself with each project. So that's never a good look. That's going to create a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths who are in EOS or were in EOS for the long haul. Some of them have sold, as is evident on the chart. But just looking at the journey EOS has had, market cap wise, also tells an interesting story. You know, in late 2019, we had very clearly kind of four groups of coins. We had Bitcoin, which obviously has always been in the upper echelons of market cap, Ethereum and Ripple. And then you had a bunch of other coins, including EOS in the green here, and then some lesser coins after that. It's interesting, though, that EOS has moved down a tier, basically. You know, Ripple obviously has moved down a tier. BTC and ETH arguably now in their own tier. But EOS is, market cap wise, continues to sort of decline amongst its peers, which is never a good look as well. I'll get to the technicals at the end, but it's basically stagnated price-wise. Hasn't really done anything. And I've said this a lot with EOS, but I would expect more out of a project that raised as much money as they have, especially however many years out it's been at this point. So overall, it hasn't performed very well in a vacuum, and it hasn't performed very well amongst its peers over the past couple of years. These are the block producers for EOS. The top 21 get paid. A lot of these are exchanges. A lot of these are located in Asia. You will run into governance problems down the road if users disagree with those parties. Users can always remove their EOS from the block producer that they disagree with. But it's something to keep in mind when we're talking about centralization of proof of stake versus proof of work. If you don't have a diversified group of block producers, geographically or by type, you know, ideally you want to see trusted pillars of the community in here, which can be exchanges, but many of these are exchanges, which is an issue. So it's always something to keep in mind. It's not a problem until it's a problem. Just ask Steemit and Binance and what happened in that story. Look at the GitHub commits. They have fallen off precipitously since 2018. Larimer has produced fewer and fewer comments over the past few years. He was the CTO. They still have a team, a crew. This is just one GitHub repo, obviously. The company moved to Arlington, Virginia a few months ago. They were supposed to double their team size. I don't know enough about the business to know whether or not that's happened, but supposedly it's happened. Looking at staking on EOS in the blue here versus everything else, EOS is behind ADA, ETH, Tezos, AVAX, SNX. It's probably close with Algo and Atom, but it's in the top 10 as far as notional value being staked on the network. Looking at transaction counts and block counts. So block counts went way down after an airdrop sort of clogged the network. That's long since recovered, but that possibility will always be there so long as the network can't scale for that massive influx of transactions. Overall, transactions per day has declined pretty substantially since the past few months. Definitely not something you want to see if you're bullish on a network. Ideally, everything's up and to the right. If you look at the top Dapps on EOS by volume, most of it is gambling related stuff because transactions are free, unlike EOS or unlike ETH, where most of the DApp activity is exchange related or lending related. So it's unlikely that any of this gambling stuff ever goes away off of EOS so long as EOS exists, because the transactions are free. It just makes more sense that these type of dApps exist on EOS rather than ETH. And the total number of users sorted here for the dApps, kind of the top 5 are just games, a social thing, or new DEX, the exchange. So overall they have, you know, it's not dead, the chain, as far as the dApps are concerned. Definitely has a decent amount of activity here based on the data available. Looking at Google Trends, I was a bit surprised that EOS.io has spiked up here to multi-year highs over the past few weeks. Pretty much every coin that I've looked at, Google Trends has spiked to multi-year highs. So it could just be a rising tides, raising all boats effect. But seeing that, it's definitely bullish for the coin and a bit of a bullish divergence on price, considering price just sold off in the Larimer news. And overall, the past few weeks, price has really done a bunch of nothing. Looking at technicals, Bitfinex long shorts, yearly pivots, VPVR, 5200 EMAs, volume, and RSI. So right away on the volume, you can see that selling spike on the Larimer news. No surprise there. It's a pretty big deal when an insider leaves the project or one of the key people behind the project leaves the project. The 50 and the 200 EMAs have been very unuseful over the past few months. They've crossed bullish a few times. Every single time that rally has been shorter and shorter and shorter, and now it's just sort of collapsing on itself. Based on VPVR, price is sitting exactly where you'd expect it, around 275. Each of these notches represent support or resistance at this point. So from 275, 3, 5, 8 are all good levels on the way up, as well as these yearly pivots. There's a decent short spike. It's not a lot, but it's more than it was. Longs came off as well over the past couple weeks. And you have to wonder if this is in response to the Larimer stuff or not. We'll see at the end of the day if it's really that big of a deal. He wasn't really doing much for the project, arguably, anyway. So it's hard to imagine what his absence is necessarily going to create. I don't know if it'll be missed. He did a few things. EOS Rex. He was probably part of the voice stuff. I'm not really too sure exactly how involved he was on the day-to-day. Anyway, he may have been checked out for months now. Once that news becomes public, obviously, it's not super bullish. Here's a bearish pitchfork I've been watching for, a couple years at this point. And the idea behind this is you pick 3 points. It establishes a rate of change. If price looks like it's fitting well, which to me it has, it's respected the median line a bunch of times. It's retested the median line a bunch of times. Then you can say, okay, this is a valid trend. Once price is above the pitchfork for a reasonable amount of time, you can say, all right, we've invalidated this. The bear trend's probably over. So far we've just stayed within this range on price. But if this does make lower lows for whatever reason, I certainly expect it to retest the median line here. So if there's mass selling because of the Larimer news in the future, or whoever else might be leaving the project, I'd certainly expect it to tap 60 cents or whatever this is, 50 cents down here on this pitchfork, which is why I'm just going to leave it until it makes higher highs in price. It's completely possible that it drops down here and retests this median line. Here's the cloud, and it's on the 2-day, so this is zoomed out even, and it still looks like a mess. It's just so not trendless. This is a great example of when not to use the cloud. It's just all over the place. Breakouts haven't gone anywhere. Breakdowns haven't gone anywhere. The signals have been all over the place. So if I was actually trading this, I would just be waiting for higher highs or waiting for lower lows and just ignoring it, because it's gone nowhere very quickly over these past few months, whereas everything else has sort of moved up or down. It's done something. EOS hasn't really done anything recently. EOS USD anyway. EOSBTC, however, reaching for new all-time lows. You can see this parabolic downside here. So again, we have the cloud, the 200-day moving average, VPVR, and yearly pivots. I put on last year's yearly pivots as well to sort of illustrate the potential for support at around 5K sats. But until the USD pair shows some sort of strength, there's probably no bottom to this chart, because BTC doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon, and EOS has just gone sideways, so it'll continue to hemorrhage value against BTC. On the flip side, if it does decide to mean revert, I'd be looking for 21K, 22K sats, basically the yearly pivot, the 200-day moving average, and this VPVR node. I wouldn't expect it to get beyond 35K sats anytime soon, but if I was trading this, I'd be looking for bull divs on RSI, just massive volume washout, panic, hysteria. As it is, it's it's at all-time lows. If Zcash is any comparison, a coin can continue to push all-time lows for years So it's difficult to want to catch knives like this unless there's some redeemable factor about this project against BTC, which I don't know if there is one. So overall, fundamentals are weak other than Google Trends. Technicals are very weak to neutral on the USD pair, and the BTC pair looks like it's going to continue to push all-time lows in the near term.